Greetings, friends. I am Vitaly Portnikov. After the permanent representatives of the member states of the European Union agreed on the indefinite blocking of Russian assets held in European depositories, there is a real opportunity to provide the so-called repatriation loan to Ukraine. Previously, it was difficult to even think about the confiscation of Russian assets, because these funds were linked to the EU sanctions mechanism, which was confirmed every 6 months by a unanimous vote of representatives of all EU member states. Now, the allocation of funds for Ukraine can be secured by a qualified majority, while Ukraine itself undertakes to return the money and the reparation loan after Russia, in turn, pays it reparations related to the consequences of its attack on a neighboring country. But since Russia, of course, does not recognize any aggression against Ukraine and will not pay any reparations to it, it will, in fact, be about the confiscation of funds. And now the most important question arises. To what extent will it be possible to provide a qualified majority of the member states of the European Union to provide such a loan? There is no doubt that the leaders of the EU member states at their summit will agree to an indefinite blockade of Russian assets. But there will be the most important and most responsible vote ahead. And now it has already become clear that several more countries are joining Belgium, which predictably opposes the transfer of Russian assets, if only because the lion's share of them is in Belgian financial institutions. So far, they are talking about Italy, Bulgaria and Malta, and possibly the Czech Republic. It is clear that Hungary and Slovakia, whose leaders have always opposed the confiscation of Russian loans in any form, will take the same position. The appearance in the list of countries that oppose granting reparations loan Italy shows that the European Union summit will be another important person who will somehow influence the position of European leaders. And this is the President of the United States, Donald Trump. As you know, the Trump administration opposes the provision of a reparative loan to Ukraine. Its representatives claim that this can practically neutralize the efforts of President Donald Trump, and, in addition, to create serious problems for the implementation of his so-called peace plan. In addition, it is known that Trump's entourage is also thinking about the profits from the Russian loan, which will go at least partially to the restoration of Ukraine. Such a clause was contained in the first version of Trump's plan, published by the Axis publication. And it is quite possible that this point was entered by the advisor to the President of Russia on foreign policy Yuri Ushakov and Putin's special representative Kirill Dmitriev, and precisely in order to create a certain financial hook for the Americans. A hook that will allow the administration of the President of Russia to use the administration of the President of the United States as an effective tool to block the idea of transferring Russian assets to Ukraine. And judging by Italy's position, this lever is working. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is known to be considered one of the most loyal supporters of Donald Trump in Europe. Meloni, who heads an ultra-right political party in his country, and Trump, who is a representative of the ultra-right political forces of the United States itself, have common ideological priorities. And, as you know, it is precisely such politicians that Donald Trump would like to see at the head of European countries. And the fact that Italy, one of the most authoritative countries in the European Union, is trying to block the possibility of allocating Russian money for Ukraine indicates not so much that Meloni would like to protect Vladimir Putin's money, as that she is fulfilling some common agreements with President Donald Trump. And in this sense, we can talk about a new stage of unprecedented pressure on a united Europe. Earlier, the president of the Russian Federation was primarily interested in weakening this united Europe, and many of Vladimir Putin's efforts in recent years have been aimed precisely at undermining the European project. Putin thinks about his own political hegemony in Europe. The Russian-Ukrainian war, during which he expects to destroy a neighboring state, is one of the important tools for establishing this political hegemony. But now the European Union as a project does not suit Donald Trump either. Perhaps because the American president is sure that if the European project collapses, it will be much easier for the United States to influence each individual country of the European Union, imposing on it not only political but economic mechanisms of interaction with the United States. Paradoxically, considering the issue of a reparative loan for Ukraine may become a serious test for European unity. There will be leaders who agree to defend this loan and consider it part of European sovereignty, such as the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, or German Federal Chancellor Friedrich Merz. There will be leaders who will try to serve the political interests of both Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, but the interest in privileged economic relations with Moscow will prevail here. Of course, we are talking about Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban or Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico. There will be leaders who are not at all interested in serving Vladimir Putin's political interests, but are trying to have privileged political and possibly economic relations with Donald Trump. And this is the Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, but the list of Trumpists among European leaders, of course, does not end there, and many would like to get on this list, precisely defending the idea of the administration of the President of the United States on the allocation of a repatriation loan. And in this way, we can testify that such a split, which is in the hands of both Putin and Trump, can weaken both Europe and Ukraine, which does not exist, when there is enough money to take against the background of ongoing Russian aggression and Moscow's desire to destroy the Ukrainian economy, not just by continuing military actions against Ukraine, but also by constant missile strikes on infrastructure facilities of the country being destroyed by Putin's military. Thank you, friends. Stay on this channel, subscribe to it, subscribe to my social networks, to the channels in Patreon, BAME, Ko-fi, and Donatello, which helps to develop these resources. Use the sponsorship feature in YouTube itself. The world